I want you to think back to early 2016. D&D is still relatively young. Out of the Abyss was the last adventure book published. Before that was Princes of the Apocalypse, and before that was Tyranny of Dragons, which had Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat. Now, having played in the Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat, as well as Out of the Abyss, and having run Princes of the Apocalypse, I wanted something better. Tyranny of Dragons was a little bit boring, at least in my opinion. Princes of the Apocalypse had some iconic set pieces, including the Temple of Elemental Evil, but it needed some work on the DM to make them connect. And Out of the Abyss kind of just felt like a repetitive travel montage while fighting the same 10 enemies on the random encounter list. This is where Curse of Strahd comes in and took all of the good parts of the former adventure paths and made it work into something new. Before we go on though, I do want to say that all of this is just opinionated. Anything that has to do with games is opinionated. You can disagree with me. You're totally allowed to, I promise. You can let me know in the comments if you do. Apparently, I'm not the only one who likes Curse of Strahd, as according to BookScan, a dead service that tracks purchases of ISBN numbered books through brick and mortar tills and online retailers. Curse of Strahd is the #1 D&D adventure path sold with 147,244 copies, not including Roll20 and other virtual tabletops. The second most published adventure, oddly enough, is Dragon Heist. It's about 20,000 sales shy. Matt and I playtested that module, and I don't remember liking it, but this further illustrates my opinion that we all have differing opinions on D&D stuff. But a lot of us can agree that, at least pre-retcon, Curse of Strahd is just built differently. And I'll get to that retcon part a little bit later. Curse of Strahd fixes the teething problems of the earlier adventure paths and puts a focused and tightly written sandbox, finished with a large iconic dungeon at the feet of the players. So let's explore this module a little bit more, thanks to my Patreon patrons and the subscriber who requested this. This is our 2,000 subscriber special. This is the Curse of Strahd retrospective. Hi everyone, my name is Justin. Welcome to Game On, we're a show all about tabletop gaming from RPGs to board games and everything in between. If you like this kind of stuff, consider hitting that subscribe button and the like button. Matt and I's very first video had Curse of Strahd as an example in the making your module your own, because I've run Curse of Strahd so much, I can't count it on both of my hands. And I've homebrewed it a little bit. Okay, that's a lie. A lot. But the cool thing is, I don't really need to homebrew too much if I don't want to. Running this game vanilla, for the most part, is just as good as adding things to it, because it's the best, sweetest, organic, velvety vanilla from Madagascar you'll ever have. It's good vanilla. It's not store-brand vanilla, it's high-end vanilla. Let's break down the parts of this module to try to understand how it is truly superb. The setting of Barovia is a very different kind of setting. Don't get me wrong, the Forgotten Realms framing of the majority of D&D adventure paths are pretty good. I find it funny that every second year, a new apocalyptic event threatens the fabric of reality for everyone in Faerun, but anyway, I digress. It's just funny. Barovia is a setting of gloom. It's not a faux medieval setting like Forgotten Realms is. Games like Dark Souls and Demon Souls have popularized the idea of dark settings with some extra difficulty, where there's very few places to hide and rest other than maybe a campfire. People really like this. they buy those kinds of games, and they don't mind the difficulty that follows the new kind of set dressing. And I'm sure there are other video games out there that prove my point, and feel free to tell them in the comments. But the main point I'm trying to make here is that people like different if it's spooky and if it's difficult. The gothic horror vibes feel spooky yet cozy. I don't know how to describe it. Barovia invokes images of Hammer horror films, the Universal Bela Lugosi Dracula films. So that's the horror, but I think the cozy feeling comes from the tight-knit group of players that you have together along with your PCs like Irina, Ismark, Rictavio. All of you have to rely on is each other, and I'd say that is more so than any other module. Some people say that as a cleric you can't talk to your god from Forgotten Realms. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that if you get your power from somebody out of Barovia, I would suggest that DMs make it just a little bit more difficult for them to get in contact with their god. They're not really supposed to be able to, but that's just my opinion. Let me know if you guys have thoughts on that. I will say, though, that it is dangerous in Barovia, and that's why people are so tight-knit. And that's why I think it's more focused than any other module. It's a valley in constant twilight and fog that prevents the players from escape. So every time you look at, like, Castle Ravenloft in the distance, lightning strikes. Whoosh! And that ever-present towering castle is always bearing down on you. In addition, there's always wolves howling in the distance, and the shuffle of unseen zombies somewhere far off in the fog. Speaking of monsters, I really enjoy the focused random encounters list. I do, however, respect and appreciate the fan-made ones with more choices. Homebrew, Von Richten's Guide, the newer monster manuals that came out since the original Curse of Strahd. I like all of the new ones, but the original, like, rules as written random encounter list is still good. I mean, we got zombies, werewolves, skeletons on horseback. Like, damn, there's a lot of cool things to fight. Not to mention the specialized characters like Baba Yaga, Ezek, and the freaking Chucky doll. Some of these encounters come early. I understand that zombies and skeletons aren't much of a match for higher level characters, but 8 Needle Blights at 3rd level is pretty terrifying. 3d6 zombies and a Will-O-Wisp is a difficult fight for any party under 5th, seeing as they have a feature where they can literally kill you and you can't come back with anything short of a wish spell. Good luck getting a wish spell. Well, you can get a wish spell in Barovia, but you're gonna die. You can die from a Will-O-Wisp, so it's pretty scary. If you stay in the fog for too long and you don't make haste, 5 dire wolves will come for you at level 3. If you try to fight those 5 dire wolves, 20 more regular wolves come at level 3. That's 20 regular wolves, 5 dire wolves. You're going to be outmatched in just about every level your PC is. This is a digitally module, and I'm here for it. 5th edition is too easy on its characters, in my opinion. These hard-hitting monsters are unique and challenging. They help drive home the point that the setting is an intimidating and chilling place to be. On top of the monsters, there are some really cool characters. Rictavio, the vampire hunter with an axe to grind, after losing his loved ones. Esmeralda, whom Rictavio treats as a daughter, who's pretty kick-ass. Side note, Esmeralda in the updated version, they got rid of her steampunk prosthetic leg. I guess I can see why a company that answers to shareholders would be afraid of that being offensive. As somebody who works in the healthcare, specifically on the clinical and rehabilitation side of things, I have met a lot of people with prosthetics, and they are not ashamed. So, I don't know exactly what Wizards of the Coast was thinking, but whatever. I still play with her having the steampunk leg because I like to give her free move, extra move speed, and a different, like a legendary action dash. Sometimes I'll even give her like the mighty foot from Duke Nukem and let her use that as a weapon. This also is probably a decent time to address the Vistani retcon. Again, I understand the fear of the stereotype. In the original Ravenloft, the Vistani were even more linked to the Romani people. Their stat blocks actually called them gypsies. Anecdotally, I have a player from the Romanian background, and after discussing this with him, he said it wasn't terrible, but he understands why some people might be afraid of calling or relating them to gypsy culture. He said that, quote, "The old bloods, the ones who still call themselves Shingaran," I think is what he said. I'll put something up here. I'll have to look it up on how to actually spell it. That's what he said. They are the ones who may find it offensive, or at least a misrepresentation of the people. He has said that his people do have a sense of humor, and most wouldn't care that Vistani have some resemblance to them. Again, I'm not part of the culture, my knowledge is very little, and I have one anecdotal story, so I can't, like, paint with a broad stroke. I guess it was big enough of a deal to make a reason to put out a new book with a whole bunch of other things and sell it for twice as much money. Wes, if you're watching this, I hope I did your explanation of the Vistani and how they're not terribly offensive, but how they could be offensive justice, if you're watching this. Onto the characters that weren't retconned like the Vistani or Esmeralda. We have Ismark the Lesser. He's part of the potential plot hooks to get the players into Barovia. With his father's passing, he's basically in charge of the village of Barovia. He has no idea what he's doing. He's also tasked with looking after his stepsister Irina, or is it Tatiana? Yeah, she's pretty badass on her own, and she can fend for herself. And the players have to figure out why Strahd keeps calling her Tatiana. Why does she get hypnotized by him? And why does he keep on trying to bring her to his castle? Of course, we have Madame Ava, the awesome psychic who helps drive the story. Fun fact, my mom had to teach me how to read tarot and angel cards to best run the fortunes of Ravenloft. I'll talk about that in a second, but she's just thematic. Treating the players to a free spooky reading of their fate is pretty cool. Of course, there are many good characters. I can't name all of them, but here's a few. We have the macabre Dr. Frankenstein-like character, the terrifying toy maker, the weird witches. I can keep going, but the YouTube algorithm hates long-form content, and this video is already getting too long. I want to discuss the Fortunes of Ravenloft minigame, because that's kind of this module's shtick. Actually, it is this module's shtick. The players will get a free fortune telling from the psychic soothsayer, Madame Ava. Now here the DM clears the table and breaks out a deck of cards to help the players determine their fates. It's similar to tarot, but it has a spin to it that's more D&D-esque. You see, this mechanic is where the PCs will find their treasure to help defeat Strahd, and it'll help find the allies that will help them defeat Strahd, and also where Strahd himself will be for their final battle. This single mechanic is why I've been able to run this adventure path so many times without really getting bored. Not every party gets to go to every place in the land of Barovia, because they'll have different places to explore thanks to the fortunes. Because not everybody goes everywhere, if you run it for the same group another time, they may go to a place that they didn't even know existed in the land of Barovia. So I think it's pretty cool how it emphasizes exploring new places depending on where you get your fates, where you are supposed to go to. What's really interesting is that they also help you get a ally to fight Strahd. You could have a powerful wizard on your side, a vampire hunter like Rictavio, or you could just have a regular dude. You may not have anybody either. This changes how the PCs will go about fighting Strahd. Do they have a helpful ally, or are they more of a hindrance, like they have to be babysitters? I also enjoy the change of where Strahd is in the castle for the final showdown. A bloody cramped fight in the tunnels, shoulder to shoulder, fighting a vampire and his minions is very different to a fight in a big open throne room with a conveniently placed glass chandelier and glass window. Every time I've run this module, it's been different. The replay value makes this module a little bit more worth it for my wallet, and I really enjoy that. So a large gothic castle that looms over the whole valley, I'd say Castle Ravenloft, other than Strahd himself, is the pivotal part of this adventure path. Remember, the first module by the Hickmans was just the village of Barovia and Castle Ravenloft. This castle was used in the Hickmans homebrew for a Halloween game a few years before it being published, so they had quite some time to perfect it, and this is a great dungeon. Now, this isn't a funhouse dungeon. Interestingly enough, the Hickmans created this world of Barovia and Strahd because they found a random vampire in a dungeon crawl, and they thought it didn't make any sense for it to be there. I suggest watching this video here that I made for a little bit more in-depth discussion on the creation of Strahd and I-9 Ravenloft. But the point is that Castle Ravenloft has no pointless or seemingly random encounters. You'll fight wights, shadows, crawling hands, witches, and vampires. Well, vampire spawns. I won't give the whole random encounter table away, but these, along with the planned encounters, you'll find quite a lot to do in this expansive castle. And it is, in my opinion, even more tight and focused than the Temple of Elemental Evil, which I've also run. Speaking of expansive, this castle has a lot of nooks and crannies for the PCs to explore. I have another video here about my personal opinions on how to run it as a DM. This thing is big, it takes 12 maps to hold everything in it, and depending on how you consider architectural levels, this dungeon can have anywhere from 6 to 7 levels. This is not a one-session dungeon crawl. Along with the other random events from the Fortunes in Ravenloft mini game at the beginning of this adventure, you'll find different people, weapons, and artifacts in different locations. Sometimes you'll find them not in the castle. Sometimes you will. You might find the cold claustrophobic catacombs have a weapon that you need to defeat Strahd. Or the town of Vallaki has an ally there to help you. Or that warm, cozy, inviting dining room in the castle that's filled with warm food, mulled wine, and sweet-smelling fruits has a holy symbol in there, right on a chest next to a warm, inviting fire. Castle Ravenloft isn't just a dungeon with rocks, walls, and darkness. There are tons of variety to the locales. Now, even if you don't ever plan on playing Curse of Strahd or running it, I highly suggest taking a look at the maps of Castle Ravenloft. I just think it does a very good job of explaining how you can make big, fun, different kinds of dungeons and how you can connect them. Now, to avoid too much angst, I will say that Castle Greyhawk is up there, and same with Undermountain. I still think Castle Ravenloft is the best dungeon in all of D&D, but that's just me. Now finally we've come to the big man himself, Strahd von Zarovich. He's a vampire. Okay, that doesn't do him any justice. So there's something about Strahd being so incredibly, I guess for lack of a better term, iconic again. Like, he is, people will think of big bads in D&D, and they will think of, like I said, Vecna, Acererak, and probably Strahd. Strahd is written with a tragic backstory that makes the players realizing that he is more than just a stat block. He can make decisions, and he is probably the most fleshed out character in all of, or fleshed out villain, I should say, in most of D&D. I'd probably say all, in my opinion. He's done horrible things, he's done despicable things, and he is very much evil. But when the players understand why he has become a vampire, they can relate as much as they can relate to a fantasy vampire. He is more than just a stat block, but he does have a stat block, and this is probably my one time I'll say that I don't fully agree with the book. Strahd's stat block is winky. He needs to be nastier. There are tons of fan-made Strahds out there that are way better. His AC and hit points are, especially when he has the whole party that are all healed up and all the magic items and their allies to help beat him. He probably won't last more than 3, maybe 4 rounds. I usually bump up his AC and his hit points at least, but I like to use a homebrew one. There's a ton of them out there. They're all really fun, but he does need something a little bit more than just what he has. He has an AC of 16, for goodness sake. He needs a higher AC than that. But what's interesting about him is that he has agency. He goes in and out of the castle, and he interacts with the players in the world throughout the game. He's not just a monster who's sitting at the end of a dungeon, waiting to be a dungeon boss, like in World of Warcraft. Now, Jim from WebDM brought this up in a video about Tesla's Cauldron of Everything. He said something quite interesting. For context, Jim is talking about how 5th edition seemed to be stagnant, not giving enough to the DMs and not giving enough of something different to the players. He's recapping older editions and what he liked about those books, yet he's struggling to find what release defines 5th edition. And he's trying to figure out like what will make it stand out from 2nd, 3rd, or 4th editions.
What adventure is there that's like, this defines the edition? I don't think it's Curse of Strahd. Sorry. You know,
that's the one I always go to because that's the most fun I had in one of the adventures that have come out.
So as you can see, he doesn't think that Curse of Strahd is the standout, but he does talk about how he and Pruitt have had the most fun in a module thanks to Curse of Strahd. Now, there is some evidence online that people are getting tired of the whole 5th edition ethos. They want something that engages well with their character, but something new. Maybe it's the reason why it's one of the largest module subreddits on Reddit with 93,000 users. Some new to the module, and enjoying 5th edition again thanks to Curse of Strahd. I don't have all the data. Forbes says that there's 50 million people who play D&D worldwide. That's a lot. But for myself and thousands of other people on Reddit, D&D Beyond, RPG.net, and Roll20, Curse of Strahd seems to be a module that they look fondly on and go back to when they want to play something more enjoyable with the 5 Eve rule set. It's probably why I keep going back to and inevitably keep making videos about it. But I'd love to hear from all of you. I wanted to make a fun Halloween video, and this video just happened to line up with a request, so that's perfect. Please tell me how you feel about Curse of Strahd or the original Ravenloft module. I'd love to know if what you guys homebrew, what you don't homebrew. Do you guys use Death House? Do you guys want me to talk about Death House again? Share your stories in the comments below about what you liked about the game or the module. And don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Justin, and as always, game on.